This is my audience.
My name is Hiam Saleh, and this is my persuasive speech. A few days ago, I went outside and I saw a baby bird that had fallen from its nest. And I picked it up and I put it back in there because I realized it was defenseless. It couldn't get back in its nest. It didn't have its wings developed yet, and it needed help, so I put it back in there. But it got me to thinking, if the mother bird had thrown that baby out of the nest, it would be considered murder, because not only would the baby most likely die from being eaten or being stepped on or not being able to obtain food, but it would also be the mother just neglecting to care for it and not wanting it anymore. And this is the same thing as abortion. A mother taking a baby out of its womb is the same thing as a bird pushing its baby out of the nest. So, as a human standing for the rights of all life, including life not born yet, I want to talk to you today about abortion, and I urge you to try to choose other options other than that. Regardless of the fact that it's legal, abortion is the equivalence of murder. It is not only the taking of a life, but it's also negative on the women that have abortions. But there are other options. According to the Encyclopedia of Human Biology, zygotes can be considered humans. This is a picture of a zygote, and what it is a cell that's been formed. It's a single cell that's been formed from the joining of a sperm and an egg. And a human cell is defined to have 46 chromosomes. Well, when a sperm which has 23 chromosomes and an egg that has 23 chromosomes join together to form a zygote, as seen in the picture here, then that cell then has 46 chromosomes, just like a human cell. So that can tell you right there that a zygote is alive from the moment of conception. Another thing that could convince you that zygotes are alive is the fact that they meet all the criteria for life. A biochemist named Daniel Koshland at the University of California did some research, and he found out that living things have 7 criteria for life. I'm not going to tell you all 7 of them because I don't want to bore you, but I will give you a couple, and I'll tell you how they relate to the zygote and how a zygote can carry that out. One thing is that zygotes have what we call a program, which is a requirement. And a program is kind of like a plan that your body has to where it can carry out all the processes it needs to. And for us, that would be our DNA. And like I told you, zygotes do have chromosomes in them, and that's where your DNA is contained. So they have DNA to carry out all these processes for their body, such as building more proteins and telling their body what to do. Another thing that zygotes can do that's listed in the criteria for life is they can adapt to life. They can adapt to their surroundings. So just like if it gets cold outside, we can adapt to that by our body temperature lowering slightly. A zygote can adapt to things in the womb. Not as extremely as us because it's not fully formed yet, but it can adapt. The last thing I want to talk to you about for the requirements of life that a zygote can do would be compartmentalization. And that is basically just when an organism has a protective layer around it. And although zygotes don't have skin like us as a protective layer because, like I said, they're not formed all the way yet, they do have a membrane around them, so they do have a protective layer that protects them from the outside world. So, that being said, human development begins earlier than you think. And you're probably thinking, well, a zygote doesn't exactly sound anything human-like to me other than the fact that it has DNA and chromosomes. But it is actually, it becomes a little bit more human a lot earlier than you think. So after a zygote divides a few times, it becomes something called a blastula. And a blastula is just like a group of cells that's been kind of clotted together. And it's attempting to form into a human being, like a full human being. And then it becomes something called an embryo. According to the Dictionary of Cell and Molecular Biology, a baby is considered to be an embryo until 8 weeks of age, and then it becomes a fetus. So before 8 weeks, the little thing growing inside your body is already forming. It's already forming skin, it's already forming a nervous system, and it's forming tissues for the circulatory system, your bones, and for your lungs. And this is a picture of an embryo, and you can even see it has like little head, and you can see the neurons forming in there, and its eye, and you can see how it has some skin around the outside. very small layer of it, but that's a little human-like. So even if this doesn't inspire you, abortion does have negative effects on women. And what I mean by that is that it affects them in a couple ways. One way that it does that would be it can affect their health. And they can have something that's called a uterine puncture while they get an abortion, and that's whenever their uterus has been punctured and it then has a hole in it, which is obviously a medical issue. Another thing that can happen to them is they can get extreme emotional and mental issues from it, because even if they thought they wanted to do it, a lot of women after having an abortion, they experience something called post-abortion syndrome. And the psychiatrist David Curtin did a lot of research on this, and he found that women who have post-abortion syndrome experience things like grief and anxiety and depression, but it even gets so bad sometimes that they experience thoughts of suicide. However, you do have options. Some of your options are things that, for example, if you really know you don't want to have a baby ever in your life, then you could have a surgery done and get your tubes tied, which would prevent you from having a baby because it would prevent the sperm and the ovum from meeting inside of your uterus. And if you did later on decide that, that was a mistake, you really do want a baby now, there is a procedure that you can get your tubes untied in. Another thing that you can use is you can use contraceptives, and that's simply a form of birth control or a condom. And if you don't want to go through taking a pill every day, then there are shots and patches that women can have now that'll prevent them from having a period for about 5 years or so, and which will prevent you from getting pregnant. And if none of those things are what you want, or maybe you've already gotten pregnant, then you can always have the baby and then put it up for adoption. Although giving away a child is not easy, if you know that's what's best for you or for the baby, then that's a better option than abortion. So cells developing into babies are more alive than we think, and abortion doesn't only harm the baby, it also harms the women. By choosing other options, women not only help themselves, but they also help something that could live. Thank you.